Think your infant car seat is installed correctly? Hi there, Alyssa here at Pacifier North Loop, and today we're going to talk about the 5 most common mistakes we see when caregivers are using their infant car seats. What we're using for today's demo is the Nuna Pippa Air RX. We love this seat because it is lightweight, loaded with safety features, and really just an overall amazing seat to install and use. However, there is no one best seat. All car seats pass the same safety tests. And the right car seat is the one that you can install correctly and use correctly each and every time. We are also going to talk about some Minnesota car seat safety laws and how that comes into play when you're using your infant car seat. So the first mistake we see is moving out of your infant car seat either too early or too late. So each car seat will have its own specific recommendations or usage requirements, and for this particular seat it is 30 pounds and 30 inches. However, there is one little thing that sometimes caregivers forget, and that is, in addition to that, the little one's top of their head can be no more than 1 inch from the top of the hard shell. So in this car seat it is about to here. So if you do have a long torsoed little one, you might hit that before you hit the 30 inches. The Minnesota law that I mentioned is that little ones are required to stay rear facing until at least 2 years, and then to the maximum of their car seats rules. So in this case, an infant car seat is always going to be rear facing. So most folks tend to use this probably at about, they'll make a switch about 1 year to 1.5 years into their little one's childhood. Then they're going to switch to something like this. So this is a convertible seat. It means it can go both forward and rear facing. So you would want to max out the rear facing limits, which in this case is 50 pounds. So you'd stay 50 pounds rear facing after you move from your infant seat, and then you would turn around and install your convertible forward facing. So the second most common mistake that we see is the kiddo is not harnessed tightly enough in the seat. And that often happens because obviously little one could be squirming, but it also, some caregivers think it just does not look comfortable if they get it too tight. But for safety reasons, that's what the ideal is. So what you can see in this example is this does not pass the pinch test because I am able to get this webbing in between my fingers. So what I would do to fix this is I always like to start from the hips and kind of pull the fabric up, as you can see here. Then pulling to tighten the shoulder straps, moving the chest clip down as I do that. I'm just kind of feeding all that extra webbing. Then I'm going to double check that the chest clip is at the armpit level. I'm going to do the pinch test again, and you can see that I've now harnessed the little one correctly and snugly in their seat. So the third most common mistake we see is around the chest clip and the harness being in the incorrect position. So you can see I have a newborn here, so I am using the infant insert, and what you can see is, he looks so cozy in there, but that can cause the chest clip to maybe not be in the right position. So what you want to look at is where your little one's armpits are, and just slide the chest clip back up to meet where the armpits are. The next thing that you want to look for is where the harness is going into the shell of the seat. And they do have this handy dandy reminder tucked into the seat, and most seats do have something like that. And what you're looking for is that the straps go into the seat at or slightly below the shoulders. So in this scenario, this is a newborn, he's all set up correctly. If you did need to change the positioning with this Nuna Pippa car seat, what you would do is obviously take the kiddo out first, and you can see this connector clip right here. So you would unthread these out the connector clip, and then you would move by poking your fingers through. You can kind of see right there. You would take one out, poke it through to the next highest, and then reattach it to the clip. The really important thing to do is make sure that you're not doing it over these two metal pieces for this seat, because then you will not be able to securely clip it back into your base. So the next mistake we see is that the recline angle for an infant car seat is not correct. We love the Nuna Pippa Air RX because it does give you several different options for how much your little one can sit up. However, when they're little itty bitty like our little sample baby is here, you definitely want to make sure you're using the correct position because they don't have the head and neck support yet, and their airways could be constricted if you're not using the right position. So in this scenario and in this car seat, I need to be using position 1 or 2 if their weight is between 4 and 20 pounds. So I am going to adjust that back to position 1. You can see it's a much more horizontal position, which is much better for the airway for a little itty bitty newborn. Not all car seats have something like this where you're pushing a button and kind of able to move it from a reclined position. Some will have bubbles or lines, and you'll want to make sure the bubble is in the right position, or that the line, usually there's a line that needs to be flush with the floor or kind of parallel to the floor. So this car seat does have one that if I'm installing it without the base, I would be looking at this line right here. So the 5th most common mistake we see, and we are in Minnesota, the land of the North, is inappropriate outerwear being used underneath the straps of the car seat. So not every piece of outerwear is safe to use with car seats. And that is because it can make it seem like your harness is installed tightly enough when in fact it is not. So what you can see here is I have our little baby in a Patagonia puffer, which is absolutely adorable. And in this position, I have fully tightened and you can see it is passing the pinch test. Now I'm going to take the little one out of the jacket so that you can see, and we'll reinstall the harness, and then we'll see how much give there actually is without the jacket. So what you can see here is there is about an inch extra of fabric, and it does not pass the pinch test. If you're in an accident, obviously all of this puff can compress, and therefore it's going to be not a safe solution to use underneath your car seat. So a fabric that is a good option is something that's like this, that is more a fleece style fabric that won't have that compression that we saw in the previous example. Another option is there are buntings that you can put over your car seat when you're going from the house out to the vehicle. Most of them you cannot use while your car is in motion. So bonus section, quick tips that you can check every time you use your Nuna Pippa Air RX. So when you're ready to get on the go. The first recommendation is do the wiggle test. So there should be no more than 1 inch of wiggle at the base of your car seat, right where the belt path would go through. So this is nice and secure there. The next thing to make sure is that when you put the top onto your base, that it is clicking securely into the seat. So that is good to go. The next thing to check is that the load leg has this green indicator and that it is at the right angle on the floor of your seat. And then finally doing your check to make sure that the chest clip is where it needs to be and that your harness is passing the pinch test. Once you've got those things checked, you are ready to be on your way. Car seats can feel overwhelming, but if you're unsure about your install or how your little one is fitting within your car seat, we would love to help. We have CPSTs, or Certified Passenger Safety Technicians, at all pacifier store locations, and we would love to see you and talk all things car seats. If you have any questions, comments, likes, drop them below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.